And now back to Matthew Hatfield and the evil basketball coach. Blast you, Ed Young!
And welcome back to 757 Saturday Sports Talk. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Matt Hatfield here with you alongside the evil basketball coach known as Ed Young. We have a basketball coach who's nothing but evil. He's terrific. He is the assistant coach for the Pittsburgh Panthers in the ACC, our good friend from the 757 out of Hampton and Kecoughtan High School. We say hello and welcome to Milan Brown. Coach, happy Final Four Saturday. Tell you how you been.
Good to see you guys, man. Everything's going well over here. How about you?
What's up, Milan?
Are you in San Antonio today or no?
Yeah, we're in San Antonio. Yeah.
Okay.
Down there partying his butt off.
Hey, Coach, I'm here recruiting. Is what I'm doing.
Yeah, but I tell you what, you got four good teams. You got four good teams to steal some players from.
Yeah, we wish.
It's a little different on the recruiting trails now, but as our basketball fans who are watching, if anybody has an opportunity to ever go to a Final Four, Milan, I always tell people, I've been blessed to go to 8 or 9 of them. You got to go. It's a basketball fans paradise. Coaches is tremendous because it's the coaching event. Also, the coaches clinics and all that stuff there too. But it is a heck of an event.
Yeah, it definitely should be a bucket list thing for any big sports fan.
Well, before we get into the matchups today, let's kind of put a capsule on. You just hit on it to a degree, that the portal and things where it is in college basketball. Now, your season, how it ended up there in the ACC at Pitt. I know the ACC is taking some hits this year, not having the typical year it's accustomed to for so many years being either the premier conference or one of them in the country. But take us through how it went, and then now how different it is from when you first started this thing. And you've been an assistant, you've been a head coach, different stops, of course, which we've highlighted on the show before, like Mount St. Mary's and Holy Cross. But kind of how you digest it all, because there's really no more offseason. It really wasn't in the past, but now it just goes straight into boom, next thing.
Right. Yeah, you're right about that. There is no offseason, and once your season ends, you're right into recruiting. The portal, even though there's a time when it opens up, you still have to get adjusted and ready for it because, people are working behind the scenes to try to get ready to go into the portal. So, it being in the business for 30 years now, seeing all the changes and getting to the point now where, the kids will be able to get paid, the time frames, how you can pay them and when you can pay them, and guys going to play for 3 or 4 different schools. It is definitely a different time, but at the end of the day, I would like to complain about it, but as my father once told me when I got into coaching a long time ago, when I was frustrated about something that was going on, my dad said, just remember, you have on a t-shirt, a shorts, and a whistle to go to work. So whatever the times require from us as a coach, we're going to do. So but it's definitely different. The things you have to worry about a little bit is that with all the hopping around, it's just some of the stability with the kids. And for us, it's a little bit harder to maintain a roster. So it's almost as if really we're all junior colleges right now. You're hoping you can keep a kid for 2 years. And if you keep them past that, you're lucky. But you know probably every year you're going to build a new team.
Yeah, it really feels that way. What's to you the common thread or theme for these 4 teams that have made it? All right, it's been talked about as a chalky tournament, all 1 seeds with Houston, Duke, Auburn, and Florida, a couple from the big mighty SEC. You hear the talk of Cinderella may be dead now. They're able to poach players from mid-majors, but I kind of feel like this is an outlier to an extent. I do think there's some issues with the portal now that are going to make it harder for the lower seeds, the double-digit seeds, to make that run like George Mason and VCU did. But why are these 4 here as opposed to maybe a 2 like a St. John's, or a 3 or someone else that's viewed as a blue blood? What to you has kind of stood out about those 4 schools, Milan?
Yeah, well, it looks like these 4 guys have run the race pretty much the entire season as well. I think each of these teams have either won the regular season or won their tournament. So, they approved from the get-go back in November. They were one of the better teams, and they ran their race for 4 or 5 months, and, they are proving this is why we're the number 1 seed. They obviously have a lot of talent. And each of them have really, really good coaches as well. So I don't know about the Cinderella part. It'll be interesting to see. Yes, the mid majors are getting poached. There's no question about that. And hell, we're taking from each other as well. We're just kid jumps from our school to somebody else's. We take their players almost like we're trading. But I think the biggest thing is these four guys are really good. We got a chance to play Duke, so we know how that feels. We played Florida last year, so I can see how they grew up and made the next step. So, and then obviously with Houston and Auburn, you can just with the veracity that they play with. So it's just four really good teams that ran the race and were able to continue to get better as the year went on.
We're talking about Milan Brown. He is the associate head coach to Jeff Capel with the Pittsburgh Panthers in the ACC, 17-15 this past year. Milan's got roots from the 757 Kecoughtan High School alum out of the city of Hampton in Virginia. Has been a head coach at Holy Cross and Mount St. Mary's. Our guest here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk on CoVA Sports TV. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and interact with us wherever you are tuning in. Before I let Ed jump in here, Coach, I also want to get your take on being in the ACC. You've dealt with this before. You see a team you've seen before. It's a rematch game. Obviously, in the first one coming up tonight on CBS there at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, it's Florida-Auburn. Gators won in Auburn, who was number one in the country then. And they were, I think, Auburn was like a 10-point favorite in that game, 90-81. I believe Elijah Martin didn't play, but Walter Clayton led the way, and he's been leading the way for them all year long. Is that at all a psychological, mental edge for a Florida, a disadvantage because Auburn wants revenge? What's your view of that? And having been a coach in these situations before, granted not in the Final Four for that, what's kind of your view of it? Is it much of a factor or a non-factor at all?
I don't think it's going to be that much of a factor. Each team gets a boost. So Florida will have a boost because they know what they did before worked. So they obviously are going to have confidence playing against them. Auburn, the one thing that happens for the team that lost is that Auburn will probably have a bigger chip on their shoulder to prove that they should have won the first game, that they are the better team. The only one thing I will say is when you're on the other side of it and you lost that matchup, if things aren't going well in the game early, it can start to maybe creep in your mind like maybe these guys just have our number. So I think it's 50-50 on both sides of it. The good thing is they played a little while ago. So when you get to this point and trying to play for the Final Four, I'm pretty sure they'll have clear minds and clear hearts and want to get to work.
Yeah, good point, Ed.
And Milan, so many things I want to go over before I dive into the games. I want to just touch on a little bit. I know we can't go deep into it because we'll be here all day. But since we got you on, you've been into business. I always want to get you guys' opinions. Yes, the portal, NIL, all this stuff it's not going to change its share. And you made a great point. Deal with it, and I'll add, or get out. Because if you don't deal with it, chances are you will be out because it's ever moving, ever changing. And you made a great comment because I said this earlier too. It's like junior college recruiting. You're going to have the kid for a year, maybe two, and then get ready because it's going to change. But in a nutshell, and I'm for players getting paid, but what do you think? How if you're the czar, the commissioner, if you have the power to say, boom, here's what's going to happen, what kind of changes would you like to see happening? I know we can't just get rid of it. But what maybe, I know people talk about contracts and have the kids sign like an independent contractor status, or they had to be locked for at least 2 years. What changes would you like to see?
Right. Well, I think the contract part of it, obviously they're signing contracts now to receive the money that they can get. I think the biggest thing probably from a coach's standpoint, and I know people have talked about it is turning to overseas in NBA, and we're probably going to have to go that way where there's a collective bargaining agreement. We need to find out and we need to understand how much that we have to spend and what are the parameters with that so that we aren't just chasing our tails. Because at this point, Coach, and you understand this, and Matt, you've heard some of the things, we don't know how much it's going to take in order to get a player. So it's literally negotiating back and forth. And if somebody comes in at the 9th hour and decides, hey, we can double that, all of a sudden things change. And so if you had some situation, even like in the in the NBA, where there's a cap as far as where you can go, I think that's going to probably clear some things up, help us with some guidelines for not only the coaches but the players and the schools. So I would think that would be the biggest thing. I think it's going to end up looking like the NBA, and we're going to need to probably have a collective bargaining agreement to figure out how we're going to do these contracts.
And see, that's kind of what I think too, because right now it's just wild. Like, let's say you guys, Pitt offers a kid, $1 million to sign in. You think, okay, we got the kid, and then all of a sudden you find out Auburn offered him $2 million, and you lose out on the kid thinking you're going to get him, and then you jump back in and say, no, we got to get this kid, so let's offer him $2.5 million. To me, it's asinine, but that's basically what is happening because, as you said, there's no rookie scale to go by entering freshman or whatever. So therefore, nobody's going to call you and say, hey, how much you offering that kid? We're going to offer more or whatever. It's shoot him up, bang, bang. This is what we're going to offer the kid. You hope he commits. But the loyalty, I think, is really to the money. And period. It's nothing about your campus, his major, great coaching staff, things that kids looked at before. Unless I'm wrong, it's basically strictly who's got the best offer.
Well, yeah, the offer is a huge part of it now. We definitely know that with the money that's floating out there. But to your point, Coach, I think the biggest thing is not necessarily, at least the way I feel, I know other coaches may feel differently. It's not necessarily about, hey, the money was upped and you have to jump up, because that happens in the NBA. Some teams can pay more than the other guy, and you have to turn around and say, well, are you going to jump or are you going to stay where you are? The issue with us a little bit is we don't know if the number is real. We have no way of knowing. So if they call us and tell us whatever they're hearing, we don't have any way necessarily to fact check, besides word of mouth, that yes, this actually is the number that the kid is seeking. So that's a bit of a tough part for us. If that was cleared up a little bit, at least we know, okay, well, this is actually what's going on. This is where the money is, and it would give us the opportunity to manage the budget that we have. Some schools are in different spots, like in life and anything else. So they're the haves and the have-nots, and you hope in this day and age, in this world of college sports, you better be one of the haves, or it's going to be tough to continue winning.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, Coach, but you also have a situation now where it's affected how you go about, maybe not the way you guys evaluate talent coming in from the high school level, but the way you approach maybe building the roster. Whereas if you're not a top 250 level high school player, 4-star, 5-star kid, if you're one of those kids that's on the fringe, those kids get put on the back burner for those more seasoned players that are 23, 24, 25 years old, right?
Right, yeah. Because of the money and the rule changes now, it has sped up even more. And Coach, you know this from being in it. Everybody wants to win big yesterday, not now. They want it to already happen. So it's even sped up even more now with the money that's floating around to get it done. So yes, the high school kids, some of the times, if you're not one of those guys that is highly touted, it can be tough. You might have to play the waiting game and might not get exactly what you thought you were going to get, because yes, we're in a situation where we need to win yesterday. So how do you do that? Most of the time you need older players, so you go to the portal first and foremost to try to get those guys. Now, not that you can't find some good high school guys. We have one coming to us, and so those guys are going to be really good. Last year we had a really good one. Bub came to us. Bub stayed 1 year, and he was the 14th pick in the lottery. So you still have to recruit the high school players, but I do feel a little bad for those guys because they may have to go a step down from where they thought they were going to go, but they're going to play well, and the following year they're out of there and they'll be up at our level because of what they were able to show and prove on where they were.
Yeah, and Bub Carrington already averaging 9.5 points per game for the Wizards. We're talking with Milan Brown, assistant basketball coach for the Pitt Panthers out of the ACC. He from Kecoughtan High School in the 757. Our guest here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk, powered by CoVA Sports TV, as we break down the Final Four coming up later today. Ed with Auburn taking on Florida, Duke taking on Houston.
Well, again, getting back to the games again. I kind of, when you look at, like you said, Milan, Florida, Auburn have already played each other, and Florida's won. I often think in those kind of situations, and I think you touched on this too, the team that lost has a little bit more pressure on them to change some things. They may look at that film a little harder because we lost. So what can we clean up on our end? Because that's the thing you have most control over is what you do. So what did they take advantage against us the last time that we messed up? And we have to fix that. Whereas the team that won, you have to kind of think the pressure comes with the idea, what may they do change? What kind of change may they do? Because you already beat them with what you did. Now you just got to hope your kids do exactly that, if not better. So I kind of tend to think that pressure is on the team that lost. If you want to say there's pressure out there, and the stakes are greater now. I mean, you're one game away from playing for the biggest trophy in college basketball. Do you look at it in that terms of that way, or both teams, it's pressures both ways, and or pressures what you make it?
Well, you definitely know that it's pressure both ways. I think both of these teams and all four of them will look to pressure. The pressure is a privilege, so they'll look at it that way. The pressure is real because they're in the Final Four. The goal was to get to the Final Four, so they're okay. I will say that the one thing about Florida with them winning, the thing that may be a little bit tougher is what we won, and like you said, Coach, we can do what we just did, and let's just stick with that. And as a coach, you're going to say they'll be ready for that. They're watching the film like we did. We need to make some changes. The tough part is you won. So you could possibly making changes that you're just making up because of some adjustment you think they're going to do. Whereas the losing team, they can look at the film and say, well, this is what they did to us on the ball screens, or this is how they played the pin downs or our zoom handoffs. So let's just make this adjustment on how we're going to adjust to how they played it. So it's a little bit easier for them to make that adjustment, like you said, because they lost. But both teams are gonna they'll have definitely a few different tricks up their sleeve just in case. But they have to both believe what we've done to this point is good enough to get us here. Let's just finish it out.
I think one thing that's gotten a little bit forgot about Milan is we talk so much about just how great Houston's defense is. Florida's been on a tear as of late. Duke's looking like maybe the best team we'll get to, because obviously you've seen up close and personal playing them in the tournament with Cooper Flagg leading the way, and just the weapons they have with Malawach and Tyrese Proctor and Con Knipple, and it goes on and so forth. Sion James has been a weapon shooting it. But Auburn was the number one team for much of the year. And when you look at their starting five, and this could be a factor come Monday night with Duke's youth, they start senior. Janai Broome, senior. Dylan Cardwell, senior. Chad Baker-Mazara, while he's a wild card, senior. Miles Kelly came from, obviously, in your league, Georgia Tech, AC, senior. Denver Jones, senior. Does that play at all a fact when you have older veteran guys against even a team like Duke that might be younger? They don't see them, obviously. They wouldn't see them until Monday night. But what's your view of that now and how it changes with – there are some one-and-done guys, but there are also some guys that have been around, it seems like, 7-8 years in this thing.
Right. Yeah, Auburn is a very old team. I think I heard that they have – they're older than 2 or 3 NBA rosters. So that's the way of the world now. And yes, in college basketball, if you can get older, that is I think a more purposeful way of trying to get better and know you're going to be better. The youth part of it, if you're younger, then you need to do it the way Duke is. We're young, but we have the best young kids. So they're okay with that. I do think the one thing with Auburn, and the fact that they're older guys, I don't think any be shook in any way because they've seen just about everything. Even though together this is the first time they've been to the Final Four, but they have so much experience, and they're really, really good players. You know, the one thing they'll probably try to draw back on when they're playing Florida a little bit, and then they talk about the adjustments, is like, well, Miles, I think, Coach, I'm going to do my research now so I can make sure I'm ready for this. But I think Miles Kelly was the leading scorer when they lost to Florida, which makes perfect sense probably for Florida. They're like, great, that means Broome didn't kill us. So their approach obviously was, let's see what we can do and take Broome out. He's the guy that kind of guides them. So, but having those older guys at Auburn, I think is a tremendous advantage for them, because of not being shook. But I think with Duke, with the youth that they have, those guys have been on such a big stage at a young age, even before they got to college, that I don't think the bright light. Cooper Flagg is definitely not afraid of any bright lights, none. And I think the confidence and his competitive spirit, as you can see, has flowed throughout Duke's team.
Ed?
Milan, also, I touched on this a little bit before you came on. Going to the Dome, Alamo Dome to play, the big arena. Duke's been shooting the lights out. Clayton's been setting records like crazy and scoring. Sometimes the different background can affect certain people, though. You and I, as a coach, we always tell the kids, 10 feet, the rim is 10 feet. They're shooting the same baskets we are. They don't want to hear that mess. But we also know kids are kids, even though these are young men in their 20, 21, 22. The atmosphere is a little different. How much does it play a role at all, if at all? And if that's true, Duke's been shooting lights out. Could that be their Achilles heel now in this tournament? Because Houston does put pressure on you.
Yeah, I think, that's a good point, Coach. Obviously, with playing those domes, the background is so different. Even in the arenas that we play at the high major level, they're not like this. The background, so much space behind the goal, it just changes. Sometimes your vision, and you're just not used to shooting at that with that depth behind it, and that depth perception behind the basket. But they went over there and practiced the other day. I think more so than the background, I think the background of an arena, coupled with how much Houston pressures the ball and how good they are defensively, definitely could be a factor. But one of the reasons why Houston is really good is they shoot the three really well. Look, that's one of the things I think that's one of the biggest reasons why they've been good. Not that we knew they were going to be good defensively and know they're going to rebound. But those they are shooting three, and they're doing a great job of it. So I think it could be a battle for both teams, because Duke's very good defensively as well. So the one thing I will say with Houston and Duke, if it does get a little dicey and guys aren't making shots, Houston will probably try to make sure they get in that isolation situation or that pocket pass with Roberts, see if he can get downhill and shoot his little left-hand floater, which is not a three. And Duke will try to play with Flagg out of the mid-post and post and try to work from there. So they both have an answer if the ball isn't going in from three.
And I think also, one thing people have to understand, you haven't gotten this far doing a lot of different crazy things. You're going to do what got you there. And if it's execution, you got to execute. That's the bottom line in any athletic event, is you got to execute no matter what the situation is, atmosphere, whatever. You got to execute. And you're not going to do a lot of changes unless you're going to run some stuff now that maybe people haven't seen lately, because you've been running it in practice or whatever. Maybe you used it early in the year. You didn't really need it lately. But you're not going to just throw something out there now because, as you mentioned a few minutes ago, sake of change. Well, they're going to think we're going to do this, so let's change this. Because now the players are like, well, what are we doing? Why is that going on? And it could, again, mentality of players, it could affect it. So you got to do what got you there. And it really does come down to execute overall. And then you got to hope your studs show why they're studs, because this is the time to step up.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And the other part too is, we know usually in these situations, your best players have to be at their best, like you said, Coach. And then you need one guy, somebody that's maybe averages 8 points, and that night he gives you 12. Or somebody that usually blocks one shot a game, he gets 3. There's going to be one of, as Shaq and Barkley call them, the others. One of the others is going to need to step up as well, to make sure that you get a little extra boost when you need it. Because at this stage, usually magical things can happen, and somebody's going to be able to do it for sure. And the one thing I'll say about Houston, I know we're talking about them playing Duke, and because we played them, and Matt, you alluded to this about our league wasn't great this year, and that's true. We didn't have a typical year for us, but everybody in our league knew that Duke was best team when we played them. So I know there's a lot of conversations about, man, they're not getting tested. They need to get tested. And I was thinking the whole time, and obviously, our coach, Jeff Cable, he knows the program so well because he was a part of it. But fellas, until they walk out there and play you, you don't have any clue how big and athletic they are. But you can think, well, I'm just going to beat Kyle Knippel off the dribble. That's not happening. And I think the biggest thing that has been, Cooper Flagg is a very good player. He's going to be the number 1 pick. Great defender. The defense for them is so good because when they switch, it's because of James and Malawat. You can't post James because he's too big and strong. So your posts don't get any advantage, and he plays the point. And if you just try to ISO Malawat, he's good enough to change every shot that you try to make as a guard, which turns you into straight ISO basketball. But they are a big team. They're long. If Brown can play, he's actually the best defender.
Yes.
He hadn't even played. They showed you when Flagg got hurt, they still were going to win the ACC tournament because Knippel is really good. But until you get on the floor, it's almost like the same thing with Houston. Until you get on the floor with Houston, you don't understand how hard they're blitzing the ball screen. It's just like, man, how fast they're going after the ball and things of that nature. The same thing with Duke. Until you get on that floor, you can't really imagine or feel there are no gaps. There is no opening. They're too big.
Well, you're on a great point, Coach, because and you've seen enough of Milan Brown from his days at Syracuse, then Duke. We watched him when he played for Blue Ridge and Team Loaded on the AAU circuit. He's such an X factor for them. And I think early on, you can tell me if I'm wrong, I think John Shire was maybe fighting or still figuring out, maybe not fighting is the right word, how to use this group with the vets and the young kids and meshing it. He brought in Mason Gillis as well from Purdue, how he's going to make all the pieces kind of fit. And they lost a couple games close early on to like a Kentucky. They beat Auburn, by the way, after Auburn had won that Maui at home, but their length is such a big deal in this matchup. And Houston does shoot it better, like you said, with, last year they lost. It's similar to Auburn, Florida. They lost to Duke in the Sweet 16 in a game. Jamal Shedd got hurt. Jamal Shedd now in the NBA, but they didn't have Milos Uzan. LJ Cryer comes in from Baylor. Obviously, Duke didn't have Knippel and Flagg. It's a different group. Last thing on that question before we pin you down and get a pick and let you run here, and I'm sure Ed will finish up with a question or two for you. Does this game have to be in a certain number in terms of 60s, 70s? If it gets above 70s, Houston can't win that game. What do you think as far as the tempo, the pace? Does Houston want it to be slower? Duke want it to be faster? What's your view of that? Does it have much of an effect on the outcome per se?
Yeah, I don't know about that. Both teams are really good. I think that it's definitely a heavyweight boxing match, so they'll probably feel each other out. I think both of them would like to try to be up tempo if possible because you need to try. Both teams are so good defensively. You need to try to get easy baskets. So if you can run in transition, you better go before both teams get set up because it'll be hard to score points. I definitely think Duke will try to get it back and forth in a little bit of a tennis match. And Houston, I would say what they're probably going to try to do, which would make perfect sense, is they're going to try to turn into a street fight and make it one of those situations where they try to drown you in 6 inches of water, which means we have to get up close and personal. And it just becomes a really, really ugly event. And I think if they can turn it to that, it'll give them the best advantage. But Duke can play that way too. So if I'm doing my pick, I would say I think it's a close game, but I do think Duke's going to come out on top. They just they have a lot of answers to a lot of questions.
All right, so you got Duke getting to Monday night. Who do they see Monday night, and who wins on Monday night?
Again, we played Florida last year. And they've gotten better from what we saw. So I understand the physicality they play with. They're a little bit unique in the fact that they played 10 guys with the 4 posts with all great size. I think the one thing that could hurt Auburn, even though I love the pace they play with and their guards, Pettiford, Miles Kelly, I think they're really good. I don't know how Broom's going to obviously play, but I don't think he's all the way back healthy, but he won't care about that. Coach, he's old enough. Those guys, they're like us, Coach. You're a grown man. Go to work. So we'll talk about if you're hurt afterwards. But
you got the rest of the summer to get your arm fixed.
Out there play. But I think Florida comes out on top on that one. Clayton is special. I really like the kid Richard. The boy, he's a really, really good player. But I think the one thing I know Auburn does like to switch. and they have good size, but not great some on the wings. And Florida does have just enough of the post players that if you do switch enough with them, they can actually throw the ball. That's a little bit of a lost art in our game today because it's such 5-out, shoot to 3. But you can see a little bit Florida's doing it, Duke somewhat to a certain extent. All these teams, Auburn, coach, they're going scoring a little bit back to double post. And the big guys that are mobile, the one thing that Florida do, I think they can post the switch a little bit more. So I think they went out a little bit on posting the switch and rebounding the switch rather than Auburn continue to space them out because Florida won't necessarily switch a lot.
That's a good point.
So you got Florida Duke in the final.
Yep.
And who do you got winning it?
I think, again, just seeing it up close and personal, I think Duke ends up winning it. And maybe that's me still being shell-shocked from playing in Canada, going, all right, fellas, it's an 8-point game. We're right there. Let's make sure. And we snapped our fingers and like, all right, fellas, it's a 22-point game. It went away from us quick. But I just think Duke has a lot of answers to a lot of questions. And it's Cooper Flagg for them. I think he's one of the he's obviously the best player, but the thing I think that's great about him, coach, is he allows the other guys to be really good. So it's not like he's going out there trying to get 30, but he can get 30. But you saw in the other game where he was spinning and throwing lobs and skip passes and no looks. So he gets a joy out of allowing others to get better. And then he doesn't have a problem where, they do that 4-2 ball screen with him and Knipple, where he's coming off the ball screen, hoping they get a switch so he can throw it back to Knipple, and now he can shoot the threes, got you in closeouts. And then Proctor's back to playing how they thought he was as a freshman where he's a pro. So they have a lot of answers to a lot of questions that are going to be asked in these type of games. But I think it'll be another close one, but I think Duke pulls it out. The only way I don't see that going that way is if Mr. Clayton goes crazy. Which he could, but defensively, when Duke starts switching and putting that length out there, it's hard just for a guy to ISO him for 25 minutes and think you're going to win. That's not going to work.
Yeah, this level, these teams make it earn it even more. And you're right. You guys were up 1 on Duke, 14-13, 9 minutes to go. And the next thing you're down 10-0, lose by 29. It does feel like I haven't studied the analytics numbers like you probably have, Milan, that Cooper Flagg's proficiency has gotten better as the season's going on, maybe taking less bad shots, more quality shots, which is part of the growth of a freshman too, I would think. Right.
Yeah. And that was the thing. Like he, as good as he is, and the kid Knipple, as good as they were at Malawash, like they were still 17-year-old kids. I mean, it takes time. And I think the couple of bumps in the road that they had might have been the Auburn game where Flagg turned it over twice. So Knipple, those type of things. You want that. You don't want to lose the game. Coach, you understand this. You never want to lose. They wanted to go 35-0. But the lesson that they probably were able to learn from the loss, because everybody's antennas go up because you lost. So then you have to listen. And so I'm pretty sure Shire and those guys were able to drive some more points home. And then they just got a little bit more comfortable with each other and playing. And now they are a train rolling downhill with no brakes. So he is really, really good, but he has some really, really good pieces around him. And again, at that size that they have, it does make it difficult to score on them. They force a lot of tough shots.
Well, always a pleasure having you on the show. We thank you so much for coming on. Enjoy the Final Four down there in the Alamo. Get some churros with Mr. Barkley if you run into him. Ed's got one more thing before we let you go here. What you got, Ed?
One more thing, but I ain't going to let him get off the hot seat. Milan is used to knowing his dad back in the day, God rest his soul. Milan has always been on the hot seat because sometimes he had his seat got hotter by dad. Right. So, Milan, I got to ask you, we got to see you be a head coach again. I know sometimes we get in a situation, we're comfortable where we're at, things are good, you're in a great school, great conference. Is Milan Brown eventually going to be back at the number one chair somewhere as long as somebody at the right place? Because I think you're at a point in your career now, you can honestly say this, I ain't just taking anything. Will we see Milan Brown get a head coach? and get a head coaching position soon enough, if not this year?
Yeah, obviously, I don't hide from that part of it, Coach. I definitely would love to be a head coach again, and part of the reason is what I've been able to learn being an assistant, not only here with Coach Capel, which has been great, and at Pittsburgh, which has been great, but also when I was able to go with Earl Grant at College of Charleston. And it's interesting what you learn when you're 16 inches away in the other seat, not the head seat. You have more time to figure some things out, jot some things down. Oh yeah, I would try this. I think I would do this a little bit differently, and you can learn from the mistakes that I made. So obviously, I love where I am. I think we're going to be good. We're building the program and going in the right direction. But yeah, if an opportunity came up and it was great for myself and my family, I definitely would love a chance to get one more crack at it to see if some of the things that I picked up along the way in the last 5, 6, 7 years, if I could put it to use being a head coach again. So the only thing I need, and now if I am a head coach again, Coach, I'll call you because it seems like I'm going to need some money to get players. So I'll make sure I get my 75 cents. Actually, I need you to pay me just for the 5-star when I didn't when I was at 5-star on your team, and I had to wait my turn. Hey, Coach, but that worked out great for me because I ended up at the right spot at Howard University and got a championship and was able to make an impact as a player there. And as my daughters text me when they're going around or people send me stuff, it's pretty cool when they say, "I didn't know your jersey was hanging up there." And I said, "Yeah, that's part of picking the right spot where you can go play. You got to be able to make plays." But yeah, if I get that chance to get in that chair, Coach, I'll make sure I call you, and I'm pretty sure you and Matt, both of y'all, I need y'all to be the first ones to make donations to the NIL.
Hey, right now I'm a free agent. And Nancy River did not want me back coaching. I retired as a teacher, so I spent the years as a free agent. I saw close to 40 high school games.
He went to more games than I did, Milan, more than I did.
Way more. I had to give him expertise,
Right.
and about 15 college games. And I did something too, Milan. I kind of sat back and said, you know what? Let me watch everything. I didn't just watch the kids play. I watched coaches when the kids were down this end. I'm watching coaches. I'm watching timeouts. Why? Why not? I'm watching officials, management of game. I'm watching interaction. I watched everything, noted everything. So when I get my shot, because I do want to come back, I'm going to be a little different too. I was rolling forever as a coach, and sometimes you get stuck in what you're doing, even though it's been successful. I'm blessed. The Lord forgive me, good kids, good assistants, because, getting over 500 wins, we have to do something right. But I said to myself, you know what? I would do this. I would try that. I'm going to try that. Boy, I noticed myself changing in my head. So I'm anxious for that spot. But if somebody wants an old head on their college bench to say, Milan, what the hell are you doing, man? Why are we going man? And not take it personal, we can do that. I'm cheap. You don't have to pay me a whole lot. We can hire this knucklehead. He would be excellent as that new GM stuff and deal with the money. Let him deal with. Trust me, this dude over here can deal with the money, because if I could say this out loud, DraftKings, FanDuel, all them love this guy to a degree.
Don't say that.
So he could, and I'll leave it at that. So he could handle the money. Milan, all you got to do is just keep everything going smooth right down the line. But we do, in all seriousness, we do hope you get a shot. Every time an opening comes up in the state of Virginia, we always throw your name out there and we don't do it just for the hell of it. Really, there's a lot of positions they would do well to hire you. We always say Virginia because of your 757 roots. We'd love to see you come on back, but your expertise at all these other places is definitely going to make you even better as a head coach and what you're doing. You hit it right on the head. I know you don't want to spout yourself a lot because that's not your style, but people would be extremely smart to look at you and your background and what you've been through and what you got as a player. Some people don't know. You're getting older. People don't remember Milan Brown as a player. You worked your ass off for a lot of things. I was a small part of that. The 5-star story is always crazy. I benched Milan.
Oh, wow.
At 5-star, there was a way you played. We were told you play your best 5 kids in the second and fourth quarters.
Yep.
And then you play your other 5. And I remember standing up saying, well, these kids are pretty damn good. I mean, I got like 8 good kids. Well, and Garf was like, no. You play here. You're playing these kids second and fourth. He would tell you. And I'm like, oh, shoot. He just told me to play Milan Brown first and third. And sure enough, and Milan, the competitor he is, Coach, what are you doing? And Charlie Brown was getting ready to make a trip to Pittsburgh. I said, boy, I'm going to get earfuls from Charlie Brown. I already know what's going to happen. And you held him at bay. And I know Milan, for the life of me, I can't remember who the other point guard was.
I can't either, Coach. But I did understand afterwards a little bit, because I was a little bit like, well, I don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. And I do remember calling, obviously, my father. I do remember calling and going, they had me playing the first and third quarter, obviously, because I knew how it worked. We had been there the year before when we were all able to get the little discount, because, Alonzo Mourning was the counselor. So we just drove up. We're out in the van. This Alonzo, Terry Kurt, we're all riding in the van, Cornell Parker. And so, but he would just, how my dad was. He was definitely ticked off and trying to, hey, come on, Ed, but he was like, at the end of the day, though, he was like, well, you do what you need to do. And I don't know if you remember, Coach, but the one time, I can't remember the kid either, but he twisted his ankle. He wasn't great, and I had to play one of the days where we didn't have it. Like you said, we had like 8 or 9 guys. I had to just play the whole time. And, I was able to play, and I think one of the games, because we won the championship that year, for that camp. And I think one of the games I had to play the whole time was against Terry DeHare's team. So we didn't have another point guard. So you were like, well, you had to play, forget the second and fourth. You had to play 1 through 4, which to me was great. I was like, well, this is back being at Kecoughtan, just hooping. And so was able to make some plays and prove a point. But it was so funny when his ankle was a little bit better the next day. I went right back to first.
and I'm telling you, because when it happened, when it happened, I said to my fellow coach, and I said, damn, the kid's from the same area I'm from. I know his dad. I'm going to get ripped because I wanted you in that quarter. And I remember Garb saying to me, what are you doing? Because I think in the first game, I had you second quarter. Garb came up to me. Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? I said, well, you said to play the best kid second and fourth. And of course, I'm cheating towards you anyways. Right. And I can't believe I can't remember the other kid's name. But again, I was going to play you second and fourth. And then Garb came over, and you know how Garb can be. Right. He's not subtle on anything. and so we played you there. And I remember you were mad at me too. And I remember saying to you, Milan, this is your shot now. Okay, my hands were tied, but now guess what? Now you're playing. It's just, you got to play. I can't run the 2 guard at the point. So you're going to play. Just do what you normally do. Right. And you took it, and to your credit, you took it and you busted like crazy. And then I remember some people saying to me, hey, that kid might be, I said, remember at the meeting, I kept telling you all, this kid should be playing second and fourth. That's why I drafted you, because I knew who you were and what you did. And I said, man, the next time I run into Charlie Brown, I'm going to get my ass whooped. Because he's going to be mad as can be. But that's our little story together through all these times. But you were a self-made player. You busted your butt. You hated to lose, and you did whatever had to be done. And you always cherished playing against those better people. So I knew you were going to make a great coach and keep doing it. So we're honored to know you.
Hey, Coach, that phone call was short when I called home, though, to try to tell my dad what's going on. He was basically telling me, hey, dude, shut up and play better. And then he gave the phone to my mom, and then that was the end of that. And then she said, okay, baby, well, I guess there's nothing else to say. So usually those phone calls home trying to complain and tell something to my father lasted about 2 minutes, and it ended with shut up and play better. So
and the last thing is, I know we're holding you up. This is how things have changed. Nowadays, that kind of a phone call would have been, you know what, pack your stuff. We're going to go to ABC camp down the road. We'll transfer and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes kids don't ever get better. And it wasn't a situation where you needed to get better. You were in the best camp in the country to begin with. We did win the thing, so that showed that. It was just a matter of you having to accept the fact that, oh, damn, I'm not the number one guy. But knowing when you go into your college situations, you're going to have to battle too. And I think that's where your dad was excellent at raising you on the court, so to speak, let alone as a father, was, hey, it's another obstacle. What you going to do? You'll cry about it. We're going to get it done.
What are you going to do? Absolutely.
And today's parents, I'm sorry to say this, on the whole, not all, they don't do that. We're transferring. We'll go here, we go there. And high school kid plays at 3 different schools, 3 different AU programs, and now he's on his 5th college. I rest my case.
Yeah. Well, always a blast having you on the program and going down memory lane from the 5-star days with you and Ed, Coach. Best to you there in San Antonio in the portal and beyond. I'm sure we'll bump into you down the road.
Man, it's always good to see you guys. I appreciate you having me on. Tell everybody at home I said hello.
We will do that. We had one of the comments a few minutes ago from Woodrow that said, members, Milan and his athletic brothers from back in the day at Kecoughtan. So we appreciate some of the viewers out there chiming in during the show. Always a good time with you, Milan. Have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.
See you guys.
That's Milan Brown with us here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk. We'll take a timeout and come back with more. We got a couple more things on the way.